So then with my first question, I wanted to ask you, Guy, first about writing the script and what the inspiration was and what that process was like of really working on the story overall as well.
I think, I mean, for me, it was, it started from a very kind of a human perspective. Not, I know this film is kind of set in the future, but I was talking about it before with James that I'm married myself. I got 3 kids. I'm happily married, unlike the film. And there was a moment in time where there was a lot of couples around us. You know, when you're married, you have a lot of married friends and people in relationships. Your circle of life changes a little bit. And there was a moment in time, I remember like a year or two, where there's a lot of these relationships that were going up in flames around us. And I was trying to understand why that seems to happen. It was almost like a season of separation, so to speak. And for some reason, I saw a connection between what was going on around me in terms of those relationships and the way the world is evolving technologically and how we're all kind of isolated from one another. That's certainly true even about my kids, of course. You know, this idea of like developing a relationship with your phone or with your iPad that is more intimate than the ones that you have with human beings and so on. And this whole script started evolving and kind of, you know, like in my head, almost like a stream of consciousness. I think the first draft, it was one of those things when I wrote it just without stop. I just have this thing and it just kept pouring out of me. So yeah, and then later I was fortunate enough. I think we did it. I did another draft of it, and when we finally decided to go into it and make the film happen, I was fortunate enough to have some time with James and try and kind of like you know, repolish, shape the script in tandem with him, which is a really fun experience.
And James, I also wanted to ask you about how you became involved in the movie overall as well, and when you maybe received the script and what you liked about the story overall, as well as your character that convinced you to take on the role as well.
Well, Guy and I have been talking about another movie actually that was getting close to the starting line and then just didn't quite make it. And in that process, I think Guy said, "Well, listen, I have this other thing. Would you take a look at it?" And he said, "I think we can make it pretty quickly, and I think we can make it pretty inexpensively." And I read it, and I mean, the final 40 pages was me and me, topless, quoting Hamlet to myself. And I got to that bit and I was like, I mean, this is like a narcissist's wet dream. I would never dare to write this script for myself. And some of the ideas in the film were so brilliant and pertinent and, you know, out there, but not out there. And I just thought it was, you know, a conversation that was really worth having. And, you know, Guy pointed out actually just a minute ago that, you know, we have in the movie, the kids are sort of completely connected to their VR world and all the rest of it. And I remember when we were shooting it thinking, yeah, maybe things will get bad like that later on. And of course, now every kid in the world is glued to their computer for 8 hours a day on Zoom, taking classes. Like, you know, they're locked in. And that is not going to get much better, I don't think. You know, and as I understand it, the kids are going back to school are pretty twitchy because, you know, they're not used to being around human beings anymore. So anyway, that's a sort of small digression, but, you know, I found all the ideas really fascinating. I thought, you know, the idea of trying to play an upgraded version of myself was hilarious. I thought the script was very funny in places, and, you know, Guy was so passionate about what he wanted to do that what can you do but sort of fall in and say, well, you know what, let's try and
give it a shot,
get your vision off the ground.
And Guy, I also wanted to ask you about going on to direct a film as well after working on the script, and what that experience was like for you of both writing and directing the film overall, and just your overall style
I
of
mean,
directing on the set.
one of my small prides in my career so far is that I don't know. I mean, I got to write and direct every film that I've done so far. Doesn't mean that I'm, not open to direct somebody else's script. Or I actually have written a couple of things that were done by other people, and that's always an interesting experience. Not always a fun one, but always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular case, I mean, I don't know. I just thought of like when I write and direct, I think I don't see any separation in these two. It's just kind of a weird thing. But even the way I write a script for myself to direct is very different than the way I write, as a writing assignment. So if I'd be hired to do a writing assignment, the script would kind of be presented on the page in a slightly different way. When I write for myself, I literally try and imagine the film already playing in my head, to the point where a lot of times it's kind of like the directorial part of it is just a kind of a continuation of that writing process, where you try and examine some good ideas that you might have when you're sitting alone in a room, and now you're seeing where you can kind of push them to the next level, especially working with actors. I mean, I think working with actors is my favorite thing in this entire profession. I don't think it's always easy for them or for me or whatever, but to me, it's funny talking about this film actually, that to me, it's really the social interaction of the work that is the most fulfilling, and sadly as a filmmaker, it's always the shortest part. I mean, you shoot for a
Mm-hmm.
number of weeks, but you write for months and months, and you edit for months and months, and those are more kind of lonely parts of the process, as James knows as well as I do. Being that he's also a writer director. Um, but yeah, in terms of kind of this particular one, I think was something that lived inside me in a way that was bigger than myself. So every time I kind of connected to that part, writing it, it was like it was writing itself a little bit. And it's just this type of kind of piece, I think.
And also, I wanted to ask you both about the experience of being on set and working with the rest of the cast, and what that process was like of really building the characters' relationships together with the other actors as well.
Maybe you take that, James. I'm curious. It's from your perspective.
I mean, look, I loved it every time we had another actor on set, because I felt like there were quite a few days when we didn't, and it was just me, and that actually was very challenging. And we obviously had some fantastic actors, Anna Brewster, who played my wife, and Delroy Lindo. They were great, and they brought such passion and energy that on the days when I was kind of flagging, and then they'd kind of show up and be excited about that next part of the process. It was really invigorating for me. And I agree with Guy. I like the social element of filmmaking, and this movie. It was funny. We had this lovely guy called Logan who was my stand-in,
Yeah,
but he would
the unsung hero
read.
of the film.
He was the unsung hero because he played the clone, or he played Adam when I was playing the other one. So I actually spent more time with him than I did with any of the other actors. It was sort of a very strange experience, and he was really, really game. But no, I loved it. I loved it, and I've been such a huge fan of Delroy's work for so long. It was amazing to be on a set with that man and that incredible voice that he's got. I mean, it's
Yeah, and
just
his energy. I
fabulous.
mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the Five Bloods, where he's like doing an amazing performance. I imagine he'll get noted for that this year. But like, I gotta say, he gave us every bit of the same kind of enthusiasm and energy on our set. Like, he's an actor's actor. Just like, I was so lucky in this film. I mean, I feel like all the actors that surrounded James. Obviously, it's James's movie, But I think all the actors that surrounded him really gave us everything they had, and came very sort of like passionate into the project. And in some ways it was a little bit like working almost on stage, in a sense that we, the scenes definitely demanded that kind of craftsmanship. We had a great working experience with Anna as well, who played James's wife, and we got a chance to do some rehearsals together. So it was a really like in that respect, like old school filmmaking, which was a lot of fun.
And also, speaking of working like with the stand-ins and overall, I also wanted to ask you both about creating the stunts for the film and really creating that physicality during shooting as well overall.
So yeah, I mean, I was I was lucky enough, I think, that on my second film, I've done a ton of very different kind of visual effects work, but still visual effects work. When you start playing with it, it's a world unto itself that as a filmmaker, if you get comfortable in it, suddenly a lot of things don't seem so complicated. And that film was also a pretty big on the action side. So again, you learn the kind of craftsmanship of trying to sort of like work with I love stunt people because their work is easily quantified when you make a movie. It's tough to explain, but they come in like to take an actual beating on your set, so it's like you have this respect for them. But yeah, I mean, all that part for me was pretty painless and smooth, I think, on this set. And that's a testimony also to the local crew. They were terrific there. The people we work with. It was really a fun experience.
And James, I also wanted to ask you, as the lead actor in the film, what that experience was like for you as well, of creating the physicality for your role and doing the stunt work as
well. I mean, I think that the physicality was I suppose particularly notable because I played a slightly different version of the same character. For I don't know what it is. It's like this is the last third of the movie, I guess. But what I was trying to do was have them gradually morph together so that by the end of that sequence, when the gun goes off, you don't know who's who. You kind of lost track of who's what. But obviously at the beginning, when you first meet the clone, you've got to be very clear that this guy's a little different. So that was a really fun challenge to try and track. And I have to say, after however many weeks we'd been shooting, because we guess we shot that kind of chronologically. It felt like it came near the end of the shoot. To put on a leather jacket suddenly felt like, oh wow, but it's still me, but it's not me. This is great. So I enjoyed that a lot. Stunt wise, I don't remember anything. It wasn't challenging physically. I don't remember that there were any particular big stunts in that regard, but I remember driving through LA in a hazmat suit was pretty weird. And then later that same night, we went and stood out in the middle of the freeway and dug a grave at 4 o'clock in the morning in my underwear, which was also, it's not really a stunt.
That was a cold night too.
That was a very cold night, Guy. That's exactly right. But that was a trip. That was one where, as I was doing it and sort of being rolled into this grave, thinking to myself, okay, this is one for the memoirs. I'm going to remember this bit.
Burying yourself is a good one, yeah.
And then I wanted to ask one last question as well. Wrapping up, what the experience was like filming on location and creating the production design for the sets as well, with this being like set in the future, what that experience was like of creating the overall look for the film.
So we did part of the film in Lithuania, which was the big part of the film we shot in Lithuania, which was amazing. The funny part was that this whole film takes place at night, and Lithuania is kind of a very northern country. So at the time when we were filming, we were realizing that the nighttime is about 4 hours long, which the set that we've built, which was the main set, Adam's apartment, or Adam's house, I should say. The main reason why, I mean, obviously there's a lot of advantages to building a set, but there was just no way to shoot the film on location, even if we found that very location standing and beautiful, because I really wanted to be able to kind of interact with that large glass wall in the living room. And if I'd done that on a real set, we would not be able to shoot this film because there was just not enough nighttime hours in 24 hours a piece. So that was one thing that kind of led us. I think it kind of connected really well in the end. And I also love the idea that there is that slight separation where there's almost like a bit of a slightly less realistic reality that exists within Adam's house, which I find very much in line with the script and with his mindset, the mindset of the character. And I mean, all the other locations are basically shot on location. So I think that ended up as a also creatively as a very nice way of kind of piecing it together. I don't know if it mattered for James as an actor, if he felt the difference, but.
No. Sorry, I interrupted you, Karen.
I was going to actually ask you, James, as well about that experience for you as the actor to film on location as well, and that experience for you overall.
I mean, we as Guy said, we worked in Lithuania for almost all of the film, apart from a couple of days of pickups. And I'd worked in Lithuania once before, and I'd had a great experience the first time I worked there, and I had an even greater experience the second time. I love that country. The people were great. The crew were fantastic. Everybody, one of the things you get when you work out of the big cities is you get a real enthusiasm for small independent feature films that just doesn't exist anymore because everybody's so busy making a fortune doing a Netflix show or doing the big movie or whatever. You don't get that in Lithuania. In Lithuania, they're up for it. They're really up for it. So
yeah, I mean, they to their credit, another thing that I thought was remarkable is like every person that worked for us, from the top guys to the last man, they all read the script, and they actually liked the script a lot. And they came to me and they said like, "We're here because we like the script," And it was such a refreshing thing. I mean, I think Hollywood has become so professional, and so it's almost like there's a lot of great crew members here in this town that wear it on the sleeve, that they don't care what they're shooting. It's like, we're just here to do our profession and our job, and they're the most professional you can be, but at the same time, there's not always this emotional investment in the piece itself. So that was very refreshing for me too. Like just the feeling that everybody.
I don't know if I see it that way. I just think, in the bigger cities, there's just more money. So, you've got family to feed and all the rest of it. It just makes more sense to do the Netflix show where you can do 6 months for 6 years.
Course. I'm sure everywhere.
It makes perfect sense. But obviously those choices are more limited when you go to Eastern Europe or whatever. And it was genuinely, it was a real buzz to, we go on to a night shoot at 6 o'clock in the evening and the crew were excited to be there. That doesn't always happen. It was cool.
Okay, great. Thank you both again for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen.
All right. Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Karen.
Bye.